Okay, so as I've said for years now, from my observations and what I can see in patterns and how systems work, food is the anchor point of our enslavement. With the pinnacle of that being the consumption of animal flesh. And today I'm going to go into chickens. And after watching this, if you are still consuming chicken, you really have to look at that deeply as an example of how far separated we've become from what it means to be a human. Because I can't go into these things, and you know these things, and which, by the way, everything I'm going to go over today is done through simple Google search. They tell you everything. So that's why everything we do matters. And we have to really think about what we're doing, because they tell us the abuse that we're consenting to. They tell us to our faces how evil and corrupt and bad and satanic these practices are. And we just gloss over them, and we've been conditioned to the point where, we laugh. We think it's funny when we hear some of these facts, when somebody tries to tell us not to eat a chicken, right? But again, after I'm done, this isn't going to be a long video, but when I'm done with this video, if you are still eating chicken, then you really need to see where else in your journey that you're having a disconnect at, to where you can know all this and still justify and excuse eating the flesh of chickens. So chickens are known to be very affectionate. They're entertaining and make perfect pets. Again, you can go on YouTube and type in chicken as pets or funny chickens or whatever, human chicken interactions. And you can see, again, that chickens will behave in the same exact manners as a dog or a cat. There's no difference. They can recognize over 100 faces. They're very quick learners and learn through observation. They experience REM sleep, meaning that they dream. They communicate through distinctive sounds in different situations and warnings. So they actually have a sophisticated communication system. Not only that, but they see red, green, blue, and ultraviolet light, which is way more than humans can see. They have pain receptors, meaning they feel distress. When they're happy, safe, or comfortable, they make purring sounds. They talk to their chicks while they're still in the egg, and the chicks chirp back. So they're actually having communication with their children in the egg. Sort of like how a mother, not sort of, but exactly like a human mother will, talk to their baby, or the father will come up and rub the belly and talk to the baby, and the baby will respond by jumping around. Same exact thing. There's no difference. They live up to 15 years, sometimes longer. However, for our mindless consumption, and to keep us entrained into these slavery systems, and to keep us numb to what it means to be human, we slaughter them at the ages of 4 to 7 weeks old. Prior to slaughter, they're kept in barns of up to 50,000, with no space to move around, and disease and death rampant. And they attack each other when sick, just like humans, the weakest link. So they'll actually go up and peck each other and slowly kill each other. if one gets sick. And when you have 50,000 of them crammed into a small, tiny living space, all hooked up on antibiotics, drugs, steroids, hormones, everything else you can imagine, and they have no room to move around. And as we're going to go into, they give them no sleep time, because chickens are supposed to get 8 to 12 hours of sleep is what they do when left to their own, and they need the dark in order to sleep. So they're shoved into pens. They live 15 years, but they're slaughtered at 4 to 7 weeks old, and those are their living conditions for the 4 to 7 weeks. 200 million chickens are slaughtered every day. That comes out to 140,000 every minute. When the male chicks are hatched, they are immediately placed on conveyor belts where they enter into this industrial-sized grinder and ground up alive. And they come out the other end and are used as pet food, animal food, and fertilizer. This is every male chick that's born on the line. The hens utilized for egg production are murdered as soon as egg production drops, usually between 18 to 24 months. So usually, again, they lived up to 15 years or more. The majority of them are killed between 4 to 7 weeks, but the hens, they're kept alive in order to breed. That's it. Their only purpose is to breed. And they're kept alive between 18 to 24 months when their egg production starts dropping off, and then they're slaughtered. They're pumped full of antibiotics and fed in lit rooms 24/7 to get them to gain weight as quickly as possible. Chickens typically need 8 to 12 hours of sleep and require darkness, which they don't get. They gain weight so fast, they have organ failure. They're literally pumping them full of drugs to get them to eat, to get them to grow so fast that their bodies, the natural processes of their bodies, can't even keep up, and they literally die from the inside out from organ failure. So you can imagine the excruciating pain when your organs are growing bigger than your body can hold, and you explode inside. Slow process. And they grow faster than their legs can grow, so they collapse. So what happens is they grow so fast, some of them, their legs will collapse, and when they're crammed in with the other 50,000, again, that's when they just start pecking at each other, and they cannibalize each other. And you would never believe this, but they will actually eat, not consume the whole thing, but take chunks of flesh out, eat each other. These are the kind of stress. This is what the stress does, and those kinds of conditions do to the energy in the field. Heart failure and leg deformities are common, causing them to collapse and be stuck sitting in their own shit until they die. On their way to be murdered, they are stuffed into crates. And I don't know if you've ever seen videos of them stuffing these birds into crates, but it's very violent. Very violent. They break their legs, their wings, everything. They shove them. They just shove them in there. And they're stacked on trucks with 3,000 plus on a single truck with no food or drink prior to slaughter. So they're suffering even more on the way to slaughter. They were overfed their whole lives, and then they're starved right before they die. The waste parts, the head, the feet, the feathers, and the offal are the organs, are thrown in machines that crush them and squeeze them out, all the soft parts, and they use them in hot dogs, nuggets, lunch meat, and other processed foods. Typical large-scale factories, processing plants, murder 250,000 birds a day, just per factory. That's 12,000 an hour. But the high capacity plants are responsible for over double that, over 500,000 a day, or over 24,000 an hour, each factory. They are pumped full of vaccinations and antibiotics and these vaccinations are for respiratory, nervous system, mortality issues, poor egg quality, reduced production, poor shell quality, right? All of these things are to enable them to survive for the short few weeks to months of their lives in conditions that otherwise they wouldn't be able to survive in. To get them as big as quick as possible and ensure that the egg production never stops. They are bleached with a chlorine wash and pumped full of additives up to 30% of the weight before it's sold to you. These are Franken chickens. And then you shove that chemically full of vaccinations and antibiotics, stress and disease-ridden, bleach-soaked, murdered flesh into your filthy mouths for the lie of nutrition and because they taste so good, and wonder why you are sick and diseased. You literally consume sick and diseased sentient beings and wonder why you have health issues. And we wonder why we're in the state in this world that we're in when we have so normalized these barbaric, satanic practices, cannibalistic practices, to where one of the first things we teach our children to eat are chicken nuggets. And the industries that are selling it to our children turn them into cartoons and make it funny and so make it seem like there's nothing wrong with it. And if you've ever seen videos on YouTube of parents, they'll be at the dinner table and the child will ask, "What's that?" And the parents will be like, "That's Rosie, the chicken," right? They're like, these are small farmettes and stuff where they raise these chickens and stuff and they slaughter them. And the child will literally sit there at like 3, 4, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. They still have a heart. They're still connected to their humanity. They still know right from wrong. They still have morals. They still have their ethics. They're still tied in aligned in body, mind, and spirit. And they're told now that the chicken that they had made friends with for the past 6 months is sitting on their dinner plate. And they bawl and they cry and the parents laugh and they think it's funny. It is a prime example for those with the eyes to see that this is one of the slyest, most manipulative ways that they've gotten us to separate from our humanity. We need to think deeply on these things. And when we're confronted with these harsh truths and they go against our actions, we need to seriously sit down and contemplate, meditate, and get in focus to see how we can possibly justify this kind of behavior. Take care of yourselves, guys. Nobody else will.